Travel to the southern Indian state of Karnataka today, and you will find a landscape that feels almost entirely alien. Locals call it Halu Hampi, ruined Hampi. It is a vast, quiet expanse of sun-bleached boulders, dry earth, and shattered stone. 500 years ago, this quiet wasteland was the heart of the Vijayanagara Empire. It was a metropolis that witnesses described as rivaling Rome in size and splendor. The ruins left behind, like the details on this stone chariot, indicate an architectural mastery buried under the debris of the modern landscape. This vintage map shows the scale of their footprint. Starting from the southern tip of Ceylon and moving up through the territory labeled Biznagar, the empire consolidated nearly the entire Indian south starting in 1336, serving as a massive buffer state against the north. The physical erasure of this city was so absolute that historians must rely on surviving diaries of foreign merchants and travelers to reconstruct what it actually looked like. This raises a central question. How does a city recognized as the best provided in the world vanish so completely that it becomes a ghost town in a matter of months? The Portuguese traveler Domingo Paes recorded his impressions in the 1520s, struggling to understand how a region this semi-arid and rocky could support such a massive population. The answer was a massive state investment in infrastructure. They built artificial lakes and massive stone aqueducts, like these towering pillars, to divert the Tungabhadra River directly into the capital. Their agricultural policy used two distinct types of contracts to ensure stability. Under the Gudage system, the state received a fixed rent that protected government revenue. Under the Gini and Vara systems, the farmer shared the yield, ensuring if a drought hit, the farmer wouldn't be bankrupted by the tax bill. This approach allowed the empire to scale up grain and cotton production. State coffers filled with surpluses, yet the peasantry remained insulated from the total ruin that typically followed a poor harvest. With these massive food stores, the empire became immune to traditional starvation sieges. They had engineered an economic bedrock that was built to endure. Moving from the irrigated outskirts into the city itself, the Persian diplomat Abdur Razak found a metropolis defined by bustling wealth. This network was supported by 300 active seaports, connecting the empire to Portugal, China, and Africa. They exported spices, iron, and cotton on a massive scale, bringing in gold, silk, and copper, while maintaining a heavy trade surplus. The concentration of wealth inside the capital was staggering. Razak recorded that diamonds, pearls, and emeralds were sold casually in the open air. This wealth supported a military that Niccolò de Conti described in intimidating detail, a standing army of 1 million men and 150,000 war elephants. To counter the fast-moving cavalry of northern rivals, they used their trade dominance to import premium Persian war horses through the Konkan coast, paying high premiums to keep their cavalry superior. By the mid-1500s, Vijayanagara had aligned an unbreakable agrarian base, a global trade surplus, and a massive military deterrent. On paper, the state had solved every conventional problem of 16th-century power. The man sitting at the center of this machine was Alia Ramaraya. He governed as a regent, having secured power by placing the rightful minor king under house arrest, and he operated with a total confidence in his own strategic brilliance. Ramaraya's strategy involved actively pitting these 5 northern sultanates against each other. He funded rival factions and used his army to raid them whenever they threatened to grow too stable, keeping the north divided. The strategy worked until the sultanates realized they had a common foe. They put aside their disputes, merged into a single alliance, and turned their combined focus directly toward the south. When the coalition marched in 1565, Ramaraya rejected diplomatic emissaries and refused to formulate a defensive strategy. He marched out to meet them, certain that his million-man army was unbeatable. The empire had spent 2 centuries building walls and economic moats, only to have its leader invite the enemy directly to the doorstep. At the Battle of Talikota, Ramaraya directed his troops from a seated palanquin rather than a horse. As the lines blurred, he began throwing heaps of gold coins onto the ground, hoping to motivate a chaotic charge through the dust. Despite the lack of strategy, the empire's numbers were winning the battle until a sudden betrayal from within. 2 key Muslim generals in Ramaraya's own army defected, turning their soldiers against the very troops they had been leading. Ramaraya was captured and beheaded on the spot. When the army saw their leader's head on a spear, the morale of the million-man force collapsed instantly, leading to a massive rout. The coalition spent 5 months inside the capital, looting, smashing, and burning until the city was a literal wasteland. The ruins of Hampi stand as the final evidence of that period. Even with a resilient infrastructure and a massive military deterrent, the fate of the empire ultimately rested on the judgment of the person at the helm.